There are mysteries in the kingdom that become more apparent when the seasons begin to shift. And one of them is the mystery of divine covering. Many believers move through life assuming preservation is automatic, as though the same. Rain that falls on the righteous and the unrighteous also decides their safety. But preservation is not rain, it is a covenant. It is an intentional act of God, rooted through the consciousness of men who understand how to remain under His shadow. There are realms in God that you do not stumble into by accident, you access them by revelation. When it is said that a man dwells in the secret place of the Most High, it is not describing an event but a position, a posture, a response to the voice of God that continually draws you into deeper awareness of His presence. And the tragedy of many believers is not that they do not love God, but that they do not understand the intelligence of preserving what they love. Divine covering is a reality that becomes more strategic when you approach spiritual gates. And December is one of those gates. In the realm of the Spirit, time is not merely a calendar of human activity. Time is a platform for spiritual transactions. Every season holds prophetic implications that men must discern. December represents the closing of one prophetic chapter and the opening of another. It is the season where spiritual verdicts are passed, where patterns are either reinforced or broken, and where destinies are either secured or exposed. And because of this, many spiritual adversaries become restless during this period, seeking opportunities to interfere with the programs of God concerning the lives of men. This is why you must understand the mystery of divine covering, not just as a teaching, but as a mantle that you deliberately place upon your life and the lives of those connected to you. The wisdom of God reveals that in every season there are arrows that fly by day and pestilences that walk in darkness. These do not obey the civility of human society. They obey the voice of spiritual laws. When a man lacks covering, even the silence of the night can become a trap. But when you dwell under the shadow of the Almighty, even the terror that comes without warning bows to the authority of the one who covers you. God's covering is not merely a shield, it is an environment. It is a spiritual climate that repels danger, frustrates demonic calculation, and silences voices that seek to speak premature endings over your destiny. There is a way God covers a man, that even when danger gathers courage to attack, it becomes paralyzed at the edge of your boundary because it finds the signature of the Almighty written upon your life. You must understand that in spiritual matters, neutrality does not exist. If you are not covered, you are exposed. And exposure in the spirit is not a metaphor. It is a reality measured by the intensity of unseen forces that seek to influence your life. When the scripture declares that the name of the Lord is a strong tower, the righteous run into it and are safe, it is not a poetic expression. It is describing a covenantal refuge, a spiritual structure that becomes impenetrable when accessed by understanding. To run into the name of the Lord is to align your consciousness, your faith, and your obedience with the authority of His nature. It is to say, I renounce my trust in human calculations and I anchor my life to the integrity of God. And when that connection is made, atmosphere shifts. Invisible walls rise, angelic watchmen take their positions, and the declarations of darkness become empty threats. Now, connected to this mystery of covering is the reality that the gate of the year must be guarded. Many battles fought in March were decided in December. Many breakthroughs that appear in February were authorized in December. Many misfortunes that manifest in April began their negotiation in December. This is why spiritually intelligent people do not walk casually through the end of the year. They understand the patterns of darkness. They understand the devices of the enemy. And they understand the consistency of spiritual warfare. The realm of the spirit does not observe holidays. The enemy does not go on vacation. If we are asleep at the gate of the year, you give permission for forces to plant seeds that take months to reveal their fruits. The gate of the year is a spiritual courtroom where the verdict's concerned. Individuals, families, territories, and systems are spoken. Some rise in the new year, not because they worked harder, but because something was settled over them in December. Some fall in the new year, not because they were careless, but because they were silent at a time when their voice was needed to challenge the intentions of darkness. When the gate of the year is left unguarded, it becomes an entry point for battles that should never have existed. But when the gate of the year is secured by discernment, prayer, alignment, and covering, everything that enters the new season with you carries the fragrance of divine favor. To guard the gate of the year is to recognize that life is foundationally spiritual. It is to understand that seasons do not change because the clock strikes midnight. Seasons change because verdicts in the unseen realm authorize the transition. And this is why preservation becomes strategic. December is not the time to be careless. It is the time to reinforce your altars. It is the time to revisit prophetic words. It is the time to prune relationships that drain your spirit. It is the time to reestablish covenant consciousness. It is the time to silence every contrary voice seeking to abort what God intends for the coming season. It is the time to declare, as for me and my house, we are preserved. When you guard the gate of the year, you do not just protect the ending, you secure the beginning. And this leads us to the third revelation, which is that preservation answers to covenant, not chance. Nothing about divine safety is accidental. Nothing about spiritual protection is mechanical. God does not preserve men because they are emotional in prayer. He preserves men because they understand the covenantal system that governs preservation. Even the blood of Jesus, although eternal in value, did not speak until it was applied. Redemption was complete, yet application was required. Preservation is a covenantal transaction where the believer stands upon the integrity of God, activates the provisions of the covenant through understanding, and enforces them through alignment and obedience. In the covenant of preservation, God is the defender, but man is the activator. It is your revelation that opens the door for his intervention. Fear does not activate the covenant. Anxiety does not activate the covenant. Chance does not activate the covenant. Only understanding activates it. When the believer stands on the promises of God with the consciousness of one who has a legal right to divine covering, something shifts. The covenant becomes active. Angelic forces respond, and the voice of judgment is silenced. The covenant does not prevent the enemy from attempting. It prevents him from succeeding. It does not stop arrows from being shot. It stops them from penetrating. And now we transition into the fourth mystery, which is that prayer erects spiritual walls. The believer who prays is not just speaking words. He is building structures in the realm of the Spirit. Prayer is the technology by which men legislate heaven's agenda upon the earth. It is the firewall of the Spirit. When a man prays, he erects boundaries that darkness cannot cross. He fortifies his atmosphere. He shores up the weak areas of his destiny. He shuts the doors that were unintentionally opened. And he strengthens the spiritual systems that keep the enemy away. Prayer is the watchman's trumpet. It is the builder's hammer. It is the warrior's sword. It is the intercessor's shield. There are battles you will never have to fight if you pray. There are accidents you will never encounter if you pray. There are losses you will never experience if you pray. Prayer does not just change things. Prayer changes atmospheres. Prayer changes patterns. Prayer changes verdicts. Prayer changes possibilities. And prayer changes the spiritual climate that determines what can or cannot touch your life. When a family prays, walls rise around them. When an individual prays, his footsteps are preserved. When a parent prays, his children are shielded from dangers he may never live to see. When a believer prays at the gate of the year, he erects structures in the spirit that guarantee that nothing contrary enters the season with him. Prayer is not a ritual, it is a defense system. It is the way men summon help from realms they cannot see but desperate need. There is a realm of understanding in the spirit where safety is no longer seen as the absence of danger, but as the triumph of divine intelligence over the intentions of darkness. And the fifth mystery brings us into this realm, discernment. Discernment is not suspicion, it is not fear, it is not emotional guessing. It is the ability to perceive the movement of the Spirit and the activity of darkness with clarity. Many families do not fall because the enemy is powerful. They fall because the voice that was supposed to warn them was silent. Many people walk into traps not because they are careless, but because they lacked the sensitivity needed to interpret the signs of the season. Discernment is the spiritual antenna that helps you recognize when the enemy begins subtle negotiations over your destiny. It is the inner voice that tells you, delay this journey, or wake up and pray, or disconnect from this person, or do not ignore this dream, or pay attention. This is not ordinary. When a man lacks discernment, he becomes spiritually vulnerable. He may love God sincerely, yet he may walk into battles that wisdom would have helped him avoid. Discernment is a survival system in the kingdom. Without it, good intentions can still lead to destruction. Darkness thrives in ignorance. The enemy capitalizes on seasons of transition because he knows people often become less vigilant during moments of excitement or fatigue. Many losses that occur in December do not happen because the enemy suddenly gains new power. They happen because people relax their spiritual sensitivity. Discernment protects you from battles that prayer alone may not reveal. It is the light that shines into hidden corners, the radar that detects movements that the natural eye cannot see. But discernment is not automatically granted because you are saved. It is cultivated through intimacy, obedience, alignment, and attention. Discernment increases with prayer, but it deepens with yieldedness. The more you submit your will to God, the more accurately you decode His signals. There is a kind of discernment that is born from relationship, not information, a knowing that is deeper than thought, a direction that comes without explanation. It is in those moments that God rescues destinies from calamity. Sometimes one simple prompting, do not go, can save your life. Sometimes one dream that you don't ignore can preserve an entire household. Sometimes one sudden discomfort or one unexplainable urge to pray becomes the very wall that stops the arrows of darkness. The sixth mystery flows from this realm of sensitivity, angelic ministry. Angels are not figments of imagination. They are spiritual personalities assigned by God to protect, guide, defend, and enforce His purposes. Their ministry becomes most active in seasons of transition, warfare, and prophetic fulfillment. December is one of those seasons where angelic involvement increases because the spiritual climate is charged with activities from both realms. When the enemy releases assignments to steal, kill, or destroy, heaven also releases angelic battalions to counter, defend, and neutralize. Angels do not appear because trouble has come. Angels appear because God is committed to His covenant of preservation. Many believers acknowledge that angels exist, but they do not understand their ministry. Angels respond to the voice of God, to the authority of the word, and to the posture of faith. When a believer speaks the promises of God with conviction, angels hear commands. When a believer prays, angels move. When a believer declares preservation, angels are dispatched. When a believer aligns with the covenant, angels are authorized. Their movements may be invisible, but their effects are undeniable. They block accidents. They frustrate demonic projections. They divert evil. They warn men. They shield children. They rescue the helpless. Many people do not know that they survived certain seasons, not because they were careful, but because unseen beings were standing watch over them. There are angels assigned to families, to territories, to purposes, and to individuals. Their assignment is to ensure that what God has spoken does not die prematurely. When you approach the end of the year, angelic activity intensifies because the gate of the year is a battleground of verdicts. Angels secure transitions. Angels escort destinies into new seasons. Angels enforce spiritual boundaries. Angels oppose satanic interference. But their ministry becomes most effective when the believer aligns with the Spirit. Prayer attracts angels. Worship creates the atmosphere they inhabit. The Word gives them instruction. Holiness keeps their environment pure. And discernment keeps you aware of their operation. From this, We move into the seventh mystery, the power of words. Your words are not mere sounds, they are spiritual building blocks. In the realm of the spirit, words construct realities, shape atmospheres, create pathways, and erect protective barriers. When you speak life, you authorize life. When you speak fear, you attract what fear summons. When you speak faith, you engage the covenant. When you speak the word, you legislate divine decrees. Many destinies are exposed because the owners of those destinies speak carelessly. Words are not empty, they are seeds. They carry spiritual substance. They attract forces. They open doors. They close doors. They build hedges. They tear down walls. When you speak over your family, we are preserved. You are not motivating yourself. You are constructing a spiritual environment that darkness cannot penetrate. When you declare, no weapon formed against us shall prosper, you are not reciting a verse. You are activating a covenant. When you say, we are hidden in the shadow of the Almighty, you are drawing the boundary line that forbids evil from crossing. Your words are weapons, and silence during a spiritual battle is agreement with the enemy. The atmosphere around your life is the child of your confessions. If you want preservation, speak preservation. If you want covering, declare covering. If you want angelic ministry, command by the word. Words become shields when spoken with revelation. They become fire when spoken with conviction. They become armor when spoken with faith. The final mystery that seals the circle of preservation is thanksgiving. Thanksgiving is not a religious ritual. It is a spiritual protocol that attracts and sustains the presence of God. When God's presence rests upon a life, preservation becomes effortless. Thanksgiving is the fragrance that invites the divine. It is the language of humility, the expression of trust, the acknowledgement of God's sovereignty. Many people pray and speak, but they forget to thank. And because of this, the atmosphere of their life becomes vulnerable. Thanksgiving fortifies what prayer builds. It completes what declarations begin. It seals what angels initiate. Thanksgiving is a covering in itself. When you thank God, you remind your atmosphere of who rules over your destiny. You silence grumbling spirits. You frustrate dark expectations. Thanksgiving is the sound that confuses the enemy, because it is the response of someone who has already won. It is the announcement that you are not afraid of what the season brings. It is the declaration that the covenant is active. It is the affirmation that the one who kept you before will keep you again. Thanksgiving is powerful because it shifts your focus from fear to faith, from danger to deliverance, from the unknown to the one who knows all things. When a family gathers in gratitude, they become surrounded by the presence that defends. Their home becomes a sanctuary. Their environment becomes a fortress. Their December becomes a testimony of supernatural preservation.